He was the golden boy of Hollywood, the soft-spoken icon with cheekbones sharp enough to cut through lies. Timothée Chalamet, praised by critics, adored by millions, untouchable by scandal. Or so we thought. Behind the designer suits and award speeches, something was brewing. Not on the red carpet, not in the tabloids, but in the shadows. It started with a whisper that a glance too long at a private dinner, a vanishing act from a set, that a name erased from the call sheet. And then the leaks began. Anonymous tips, blurry screenshots, a hand on a shoulder that shouldn't be there. Two shadows in a hotel hallway. The same ring in two different posts. Deleted within minutes, but not fast enough. It wasn't just another fling. That IT wasn't just tabloid bait. It was forbidden. Industry breaking. Rule shattering. Because the person he was seen with was someone he was never supposed to be near. Bound by contracts, careers, and something deeper. A secret that could burn more than just reputations. Now, the internet is piecing it together. Clues buried in interviews, disguised in public apologies, hidden in lyrics, in captions, in silence. This is not just gossip. This is not just a love story. This is a ticking time bomb that's been quietly counting down. Until now. To understand the weight of what's about to be revealed, we have to first understand what the world already believes about Timothée Chalamet's love life. Or what we're allowed to believe. Publicly, Timothy's romantic timeline reads like a Hollywood fairy tale, curated, polished, and just elusive enough to keep fans guessing. But every name, every appearance, and every silence paints a calculated picture of a man who walks the tightrope between intimacy and image. It all began with lured Leon, Madonna's daughter, his high school sweetheart. Young love in the spotlight. Two rising stars attending LaGuardia, whispering secrets between rehearsals, trying to navigate fame before it fully arrived. Their romance was short-lived, but marked a beginning. Timothée doesn't date for show, but neither does he date in the shadows. Then came Lily Rose Depp, daughter of Johnny Depp and Vanessa Paradis. The perfect storm of French elegance and Gen Z cool. They were first spotted in 2018, walking the streets of Paris hand in hand, sharing kisses on a yacht in Capri, and becoming the ultimate soft glam couple of indie film lovers. Their chemistry was undeniable, but so was the mystery. Breakups were rumored, then reconciliations, then silence. Their love, if real, was always just out of reach. No interviews, no joint appearances. Just long lenses catching moments that were never meant to be staged. Or so it seemed. After Lily Rose came a lull, at least publicly. Whispers floated. A model in Milan, a screenwriter in LA, a few blurry party photos from Soho House. But nothing stuck, nothing confirmed. Until 2023, when the name Kylie Jenner entered the picture, and everything shifted. The internet split in two. On one side, shock, disbelief, outrage. On the other, memes, obsession, curiosity. Timothée Chalamet, the artsy New York introvert, linked to the queen of curated capitalism herself. What began as a rumor turned into a tabloid feeding frenzy. They were spotted at Paris Fashion Week, at Beyoncé's birthday party, at each other's homes. Then came the kiss, a full-blown makeout session at the US Open, broadcast on every platform within minutes. It was real. Or real enough to become a headline. And suddenly, Timothée wasn't just the indie darling. He was the boyfriend of a Kardashian Jenner. But was it love, or was it leverage? Some called it PR, others said it was genuine. Most agreed it didn't feel like him. But then again, who was Timothée Chalamet behind closed doors? Despite the scrutiny, he remained silent. No comments.No denials. Just quiet appearances and the occasional paparazzi slip-up. Meanwhile, Kylie played co-wide.No tags.No stories. Just a mysterious smile on the runway. And just as the world started to adjust to this bizarre coupling, he disappeared again. Kylie unfollowed. Timothée stopped showing up. No statements, no drama, just digital dust. So where does that leave us now? Timothée Chalamet, 29 years old. No confirmed girlfriend. No red carpet +1. No comments on his love life in over 6 months. Just rumors, just speculation, just silence. And as always, that silence speaks louder than words. Because behind it, something has been brewing. Something more private, more complicated, more dangerous. And what comes next may explain why he stayed so quiet for so long. It didn't happen the way people expected. There were no red carpets, No parties swarmed by paparazzi. No stage photos, no designer wardrobes, no obvious clues. It began with something quieter, a late-night encounter at a private industry event. One not meant for headlines, but for deals, contracts, whispers between power brokers. Timothée wasn't even supposed to be there that night. According to his team, he had just wrapped filming overseas and was laying low, avoiding press before the release of his next project. But still, he showed up, put up, head down, slipping through the back entrance of a discreet estate in the Hollywood Hills. No fanfare, just a few trusted friends and industry insiders gathered around infinity pools and glass fire pits. The kind of place where everyone knew each other, but pretended not to. That's where he saw her. She wasn't the loudest in the room, but she didn't need to be. She carried the kind of silence that demanded attention. She was already known in her circle, though not to the public. Not yet. A producer's daughter. A junior executive. A rising force behind the scenes. Not an actress, not a model, but someone who knew exactly how the machine worked. And more importantly, who was never supposed to get personally involved. They locked eyes, not dramatically, not with cinematic fireworks, but with recognition. The kind that happens when two people see something in each other that they're not supposed to look for. They talked, nothing flirty at first. Just quiet conversation near the bar, away from the crowds. Music in the background, soft enough to ignore. The kind of exchange that looks innocent to an outsider, but lingers in memory long after it ends. Over the next few weeks, they crossed paths again. Coincidences, people said, a gallery opening downtown. A friend's rooftop birthday, a table at a restaurant that someone else booked. Always with others around, always short, but with just enough time to speak a little longer than last time. Then came the night everything changed. According to one source, someone who worked security at a private screening event, Timothée arrived unusually early. She was already there. They sat next to each other, away from the rest of the guests, under the dimmed lights of an empty cinema room. No cameras, no phones. Just a movie neither of them paid much attention to. Witnesses say they left separately, 15 minutes apart. But the same black car was waiting at the end of the block. This was when it crossed the line. The problem wasn't that they were seeing each other. The problem was who she was, and what she represented. She wasn't just involved in the industry. She was under binding non-disclosure agreements tied to one of Timothée's major studios. Her father, a well-known executive, had personally negotiated contracts with talent, including Timothée himself. There were power dynamics involved, allegiances, professional risks, and reputational dangers for both. Their connection wasn't illegal, but it was delicate, messy, forbidden, If discovered, it could trigger conflicts of interest, breach of ethics, and a cascade of complications within the production world that thrives on secrecy and control. She risked her credibility, that he risked his neutrality, the persona he'd carefully constructed as someone removed from the machinery of Hollywood politics. But they kept going, carefully, quietly. No text.No calls. Only face-to-face meetings in locked apartments and borrowed homes. Private screenings, late dinners after public events, never together, but always ending up in the same place. They wore disguises, switched phones, communicated through burner apps. She used a different name on his contact list. He turned off GPS tracking, wiped logs. It was deliberate, measured, intimate in ways the public would never see. But even the most controlled secret has a shelf life. Eventually, someone noticed a staffer on a shoot, a driver who wasn't supposed to say anything, a makeup artist who overheard a conversation that didn't match the timeline of his public relationship. The rumors started bubbling underground. Whispers in the trailer, notes in the margins of call sheets. Someone high up asked questions. Meetings were held, PR agents were looped in. It became a problem that couldn't be ignored. Timothy was warned, she was confronted. And just like that, the story begins to fracture. They didn't stop immediately, not at first, but the pressure grew. Studio contracts loomed. Threats of exposure began to circle. Not from tabloids, but from people within. People who didn't want a scandal. People who wanted to protect the brand. Because this wasn't about two celebrities dating. It wasn't about clout or headlines. It was about power. Power being risked for the sake of connection. And if that connection ever became public, the damage wouldn't be to their hearts, it would be to their careers. So they went dark.And. No more messages. No more secret meetings, just silence. But somewhere, buried in all that silence, is the truth. And that truth is starting to surface. And what happens when it does, when the pieces are finally put together, will change everything you thought you knew about Timothée Chalamet. It began, as most modern exposures do, with a single image. At first, it didn't mean anything. A blurry photograph posted and quickly deleted by a background stylist on a closed Instagram account. It showed a behind-the-scenes moment from a film promo, just a casual mirror selfie, a cluttered dressing room, nothing out of the ordinary. But if you looked closely in the reflection behind the stylist's shoulder, a man in profile could be seen, unmistakably Timothy. And next to him, someone who wasn't on the official call sheet. A woman, back turned to the camera, mid-laugh, standing far too close. At first glance, anonymous, but not to those who were watching. Fans who live in comment sections and message boards began to dissect it. Who was she? Why was she there? Why had the post been deleted within minutes? The stylist claimed it was an accident. She re-uploaded the photo, this time cropped. But the internet never forgets. Then came the post's subtle coded, but undeniably linked. A caption on a seemingly ordinary photo of a candlelit dinner. Real connection doesn't need to be loud. No face. Just two wine glasses, one partially visible sleeve, a familiar fabric Timothy had worn during a recent interview. The post vanished within hours. Screenshots spread. Then someone connected a playlist she shared to her close friends on Spotify. It had been made public by mistake. Its title was cryptic, a mix of French and English. But the songs, every track aligned with key dates. The night of that mysterious party. The week of the private screening. A breakup ballad timed with Kylie Jenner's sudden unfollow spree. Still, none of it was solid.No names.No statements. Just speculation. Until the messages surfaced. An anonymous Reddit user posting under a throwaway account. claimed to have access to private DMs exchanged between T and someone tied to a major entertainment firm. They didn't post full conversations, just fragments. Enough to spark wildfire. Phrases like "this has to stay between us," "no one can know we're still seeing each other," and "it's not just us who'd lose everything." People questioned the authenticity. But the writing style, the emojis, the timestamps, they matched Timothee's known patterns. The Reddit account was quickly deleted, but the posts had already gone viral. A digital breadcrumb trail leading toward something far more dangerous than gossip. Then came the video. It wasn't meant to be shared, that a low-res clip captured by a door camera in West Hollywood. At first, it looked like nothing. Two people entering a townhouse at night. The woman wore sunglasses and a baseball cap. The man pulled up his hoodie and moved fast, glancing over his shoulder. Still, the outline of his face, even in the poor lighting, was too distinctive to deny. Timothée Chalamet, no security, no entourage, no PR handlers. Just him, with her. The house belonged to a friend of hers, a low-profile set designer known for working on major streaming projects. Neighbors confirmed the comings and goings. Always after midnight, always discreet. TMZ didn't publish it. The studio intervened before they could. But fan accounts got a copy, and within hours, the footage was all over TikTok and Twitter. Pixelated, shadowed, but damning. And then, perhaps the most revealing detail of all, a ring. She wore it once, on a now-deleted post, a silver, vintage band with an unusual curve on the side. Weeks later, Timothée was seen arriving at a Venice Film Festival event wearing the same design on his pinky finger. Coincidence? Maybe. But the timing didn't help his case. The internet, hungry and relentless, pieced everything together like a digital crime board. Threads appeared with date-stamped timelines, satellite maps, and clothing comparisons. Every moment of silence in his public life now had context. Every missed appearance, every sudden cancellation, all explained by secret rendezvous and rising risk. He was asked about it during a brief, tense press conference. A journalist, bold enough to ignore the pre-submitted question list, slid it in casually at the end. And lastly, Timothée, care to comment on the rumors about your off-screen collaborations? He smiled, looked down, then simply said, "No comment." That smile was his first mistake. Because for his fans, for the internet, that was confirmation. The PR machine kicked in immediately after. The woman disappeared from public view. Her father stepped down from 2 major board positions. A quiet restructuring was announced at one of involved production companies. No one used her name that no one needed to. The silence was louder than any headline. And yet, even after the damage control, the truth had already leaked out. Not just through photos and posts, but through patterns. Through choices, through the very act of erasure. You can't hide something without proving it existed. The exposure wasn't sudden, that it wasn't explosive. It was slow, patient, like water leaking through concrete. And now the foundation is cracked. Everything Timothée tried to protect, his image, his privacy, his distance from Hollywood manipulation, is on the edge. Not because he fell in love, but because he tried to keep it secret. And the world is watching. At first, no one knew what to believe. The photos were grainy. The messages could have been faked. The video wasn't definitive, but something had changed. Something had shifted in the atmosphere around Timothée Chalamet. The silence wasn't the same kind of quiet it had been before. It felt loaded now, suspicious. And the fans felt it. The reaction came in waves. The first wave was denial. Loyal fans, many who had followed him from the earliest indie roles, who had studied every gesture in Call Me By Your Name, who had watched every red carpet interview, frame by frame, refused to believe it. He would never. This is just another social media witch hunt. The internet loves tearing down people they don't understand. Twitter threads emerged defending him like court cases, citing timelines, contradicting locations, offering alternate interpretations of the images. Fan accounts changed their profile pictures to black as a form of silent protest. Hashtags trended. Hashtag protect Timothy. Hashtag let him live. Hashtag stop the lies. But the second wave was something else entirely. It wasn't about protecting him. It was about possessing him. Some fans felt betrayed, deeply irrationally. Not because he'd fallen in love, but because he'd hidden it. Because the version of Timothy they'd built in their minds, the pure, poetic, emotionally available man who read Rimbaud and drank espresso alone in Paris cafes, had been disrupted by reality. A reality that was messier, more strategic, more human. The parasocial cracks started to show. So all this time he was lying? He made us think he was single while sneaking around. He used to be different. And then came the edits. Videos set to heartbreak music flooded TikTok. Black and white clips of him laughing in interviews, intercut with footage from the alleged affair. Fans voiced over their own pain, their own confusion, their sense of abandonment. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was grief. Grief for an image that had collapsed. On Reddit, theories deepened. Some said he had been blackmailed. Others claimed it was a studio setup, that the woman had been planted to control him, to derail his independence, to tie him to a franchise he didn't want to promote. Theories involving PR contracts, hidden pregnancies, secret NDAs, and even ties to the Illuminati began to swirl. Ridiculous, maybe, but no more so than the reality they now had to process. Meanwhile, the media did what it always does: feed the fire and deny accountability. Online tabloids published exclusive sources every hour, claiming insider access to texts and calls and drama behind closed doors. One headline read, "He was obsessed with her. Inside the forbidden love that could cost Timothée Chalamet his career." Another simply said, "Who is she? The woman Hollywood wants you to forget." YouTubers jumped on the trend. Within hours, commentary channels, beauty gurus, podcast hosts, all pivoting their content to dissect every detail. Slow zooms on his facial expressions. Freeze frames of body language. Alleged hidden meanings in press interviews he'd given months ago. One video claimed to find the moment his eyes changed. It reached 2 million views in under 48 hours. Journalists, always walking the line between truth and traction, began cautiously reporting on the consequences. A major brand quietly pulled his campaign. A film premiere delayed for unrelated scheduling conflicts. A producer who had once praised Timothée as the future of cinema removed a tweet with his name. But not everyone turned. Some voices, especially from inside the industry, defended him. Directors he'd worked with, crew members, fellow actors. They didn't speak directly to the scandal, they never would, but they posted cryptic, supportive messages. A black heart, that a photo from set. A quote about living your truth. Enough to show support without stepping into the storm. Still, the pressure didn't ease. The public wanted answers. And Timothée, true to his nature, gave them none. He didn't post, he didn't tweet. He didn't give interviews. For weeks, his silence remained total. His fan base split into factions, those who waited patiently, and those who demanded a reckoning. And the woman at the center of it all? Gone. Her accounts wiped. No new appearances. The PR teams had done their work. She'd been effectively erased, digitally scrubbed, reduced to a shadow in a story that didn't want her name spoken. For some, she became a villain. For others, a victim. For most, a mystery. The chaos of it all, the obsession, the anger, the heartbreak, the speculation, said far more about us than it did about him. Because at its core, this wasn't just a scandal. It was a mirror. It reflected how we treat fame like property, how we build people up until they can't move without permission, how we turn relationships into theater, and how once we taste the scent of secrecy, we dig until the truth bleeds. The media moved on, the algorithms cooled. New scandals replaced old ones. But the damage lingered quietly in the undercurrent of Timothy's once pristine reputation. He didn't fall from grace. He was pushed by a world that loved him too much to let him be real. Scandal in Hollywood isn't new. What makes this one different is how quiet it was, how subtle, how methodically hidden until it wasn't. And now that the dust is settling, the consequences are beginning to ripple through every layer of Timothée Chalamet's world. Not in the way of dramatic cancellations or headline-making lawsuits, but in slower, quieter forms of erosion. The kind that begins beneath the surface, almost invisible, until one day, everything cracks. In an industry built on perception, the smallest fracture can grow into a fault line. The first and most immediate consequence is trust, or the loss of it. Studios are watching. Executives are whispering behind closed doors. Publicly, no one wants to be seen pulling away, but privately, deals are being re-evaluated. A role that seemed guaranteed is now under consideration. A campaign for a luxury brand has suddenly been postponed. Emails go unanswered for a little too long. Meetings that were once friendly turn neutral, clipped, brief. There are whispers of contract breaches. Not confirmed, not official, but the kind of legal gray area that makes powerful people nervous. Because when you're the face of a billion-dollar franchise, when your likeness is on toys, posters, and perfume bottles, you are not just an artist. You are an asset, and assets are expected to behave. Timothy's entire career has been defined by one word: control. Not over others, over himself. Over his image, his choices, his mystique. He didn't play the Hollywood game in the usual way. He refused to become tabloid bait. He curated a persona that felt authentic, vulnerable, poetic, a rare balance between accessibility and mystery. But this was a rupture in the narrative. He wasn't supposed to be involved with someone tied to industry contracts, with someone from inside the machine. He was supposed to be above that. Neutral, clean, romantic, yes, but only in ways that didn't threaten the brand. And while the general public moves on, distracted by the next celebrity implosion or trending drama, the people with the real power remember. They don't tweet, they don't post memes, but they take notes. Agents begin to shift their tone. Advisors suggest he lay low for a while. Maybe skip the next award circuit. Maybe focus on the craft instead of fashion deals or magazine covers. It's all said gently, politely, but the message is clear. You are no longer untouchable. But not all consequences are career-driven. Some are deeply personal. The affair, whether real, exaggerated, or misunderstood, exposed something far more fragile than his professional relationships. It exposed the boundary between who he is and who people want him to be. The fans who once defended his every move now watch with sharper eyes. Some have turned their accounts private. Some post cryptic messages. Not everything is forgivable. Some say nothing at all, but unfollow quietly, deliberately. And behind the scenes, there are those who feel he should speak. Issue a statement, clarify the rumors, reclaim the story. But he doesn't. Not because he can't, but because he won't. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's protection. Maybe it's something deeper. The knowledge that no explanation would satisfy the hunger that created the scandal in the first place. He said nothing because there was no safe way to say anything. And the woman? Still invisible, still erased. Her career paused indefinitely. The people who once introduced her as next-gen Hollywood royalty now call her a liability in hushed voices. She has become the silent center of a storm she never asked for. Or maybe she did. We'll never know. Because her silence, too, has been weaponized. What they had, whatever it was, has been reduced to content. Clicks, sound bites that a forbidden story that people devoured but were never meant to understand. And yet, not all consequences are destructive. In some quiet way, Timothée may now be freer than he's ever been. The illusion has cracked, the pedestal has tipped. The public has seen him, not the curated version, not the soft boy fantasy, but the human being underneath. Flawed, secretive, capable of risk. And strangely, that may be the beginning of something more powerful than image. Authenticity. Because what's left after the scandal, after the headlines, after the fans have burned through their obsession, is a man who loved, who made mistakes, who got caught. And maybe, for the first time in his career, he is not acting. So what happens next? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Maybe Timothée disappears for a while. Retreats into indie films, refuses interviews, lets the story fade. Maybe he reemerges years from now, older, more guarded, more cynical, or maybe more open. Or maybe this is his transformation. The moment the boy becomes a man. When the romantic icon becomes something else, something more complicated, more real, more dangerous to the fantasy he once fed. One thing is certain, something changed. And no matter how many NDAs are signed, how many posts are deleted, or how many headlines are buried, the truth has already burned itself into the narrative of his career. Not just because he had a forbidden love, but because, for the first time, he let the world see him break the rules. You're one of us. Stay curious, stay brave. Like, subscribe, and never miss a twist.